Aries isn't afraid of failing. They're afraid of the moment before action. That suspended space where nothing is happening yet, where momentum hasn't begun, where the mind has time to interfere. Most people misunderstand Aries because they mistake motion for confidence. But psychologically, Aries doesn't move because they're sure. They move because stillness gives doubt room to breathe. Action silences uncertainty. Speed quiets inner conflict. Movement becomes grounding. This is why Aries is often described as bold, impulsive, fearless. But beneath that surface is something more human. A nervous system that feels safest when it's in motion. This is the kind of pattern AstroMind exists to unpack. Not astrology as personality traits, but astrology as emotional strategy. Because for Aries, action isn't just something they do. It's how they stay connected to who they are. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, and psychologically, beginnings matter. Being first creates a very specific internal pressure. If I don't initiate, something else will take my place. So Aries learns, often unconsciously, that existence is proven through initiation. Starting something feels validating. Leading feels stabilizing. Moving forward feels like confirmation of self. This is why Aries often feels most alive at the beginning of things. New ideas, new relationships, new goals, new challenges. Beginnings are clean. They're unpolluted by doubt, history, or emotional complexity. But what happens after the beginning? That's where Aries struggles. Because continuation requires patience. Maintenance requires reflection. And reflection slows momentum. Psychologically, slowing down can feel like losing the thread of identity itself. If I'm not moving, if I'm not initiating, if I'm not pushing something forward, who am I right now? That question feels dangerous to Aries, so they move before it fully forms. Aries doesn't control people in the traditional sense. They control timing. By acting first, Aries sets the emotional tempo of a situation. Speed creates leverage. Decisions happen on their terms. Reactions come later. Accountability feels distant. This isn't manipulation, it's regulation. Fast action reduces internal tension. Think of it like this. When Aries moves quickly, the body relaxes. When Aries waits, the body tightens. Waiting creates space for doubt, second-guessing, emotional discomfort. So Aries learns to associate speed with relief. But here's the shadow most people miss. Speed doesn't eliminate fear, it just outruns it. Anything that isn't processed doesn't disappear, it accumulates. And eventually, Aries finds themselves exhausted, not from doing too much, but from never slowing down enough to integrate experience. Aries' self-worth is deeply tied to initiative, not outcome. They don't need to finish everything to feel valuable. They need to start. Starting proves courage. Starting proves agency. Starting proves relevance. But this creates a subtle internal trap. If value comes from initiating, then rest feels undeserved. Stillness begins to feel like laziness. Reflection feels like falling behind. Pausing feels like weakness. This is why Aries can be incredibly hard on themselves, even when they appear confident externally. There's a quiet fear underneath. If I stop pushing, will I lose momentum forever? Competition often enters here. Not because Aries wants to dominate others, but because watching others advance triggers urgency. Someone else's progress can feel like a mirror asking, "Why aren't you moving right now?" So Aries accelerates again, not out of jealousy, out of existential pressure. When it comes to money and career, Aries often treats life like a battlefield. Not because they want conflict, but because struggle feels familiar. Effort equals worth, effort equals survival, effort equals control. Money becomes less about comfort and more about proof. Proof that they can handle pressure. Proof that they can provide for themselves. Proof that they don't need to rely on anyone. This can make Aries excellent in high-intensity environments, entrepreneurship, leadership roles, fast-paced careers. But it can also push them into burnout cycles. Because rest doesn't feel productive, and productivity feels tied to identity. Slowing down financially can feel like vulnerability, and vulnerability feels like exposure. In relationships, Aries leads with energy. They fall fast because connection feels exciting when it moves quickly, when emotions ignite, when chemistry is immediate. But emotional depth unfolds slowly. It requires patience, listening, staying present through discomfort. And this is where Aries can struggle. When conflict arises, Aries wants resolution now. When uncertainty appears, Aries wants clarity immediately. Waiting inside emotional ambiguity feels unbearable. So they may push conversations too quickly, make impulsive decisions, leave rather than linger. Not because they don't care, but because emotional tension without movement feels suffocating. Aries loves honestly, but they must learn that love doesn't always move at the speed of instinct. Many Aries learned early that hesitation costs you, whether through childhood environments that rewarded strength or situations where waiting meant losing opportunity. Aries internalized one lesson deeply: act now, handle it yourself. Independence becomes armor. I've got it. I'll figure it out. I don't need help. This self-reliance looks powerful, but it often hides a fear of being slowed, disappointed, or controlled by others. Relying on someone else means surrendering timing. And timing is everything to Aries, so they keep moving alone until exhaustion forces stillness. The shadow of Aries isn't anger. It's restlessness, a feeling that if they stop, something bad will catch up. A sense that peace is temporary, a belief that slowing down invites loss. Over time, this can create anxiety masked as productivity, burnout masked as ambition, loneliness masked as independence. And Aries doesn't always recognize it because they're used to pushing through discomfort. Healing for Aries doesn't mean losing fire. It means learning that stillness doesn't erase momentum, reflection doesn't cancel strength, pausing doesn't mean surrender. When Aries learns to sit without self-judgment, to slow down without panic, to rest without guilt, their power deepens. Action becomes intentional. Leadership becomes grounded. Confidence becomes sustainable. This is when Aries stops running from silence and starts using it. Aries was never meant to burn out. They were meant to ignite and then learn how to contain their own fire. When movement comes from awareness instead of urgency, Aries becomes unstoppable without being exhausted. That's the difference between impulse and mastery. And that's the space AstroMind exists in, where astrology meets psychology and motion finally makes sense.